en este cuarto aquí. Eso es mi cuarto de kinder. Eso es donde todo empezó, adentro de este cuarto.
Venga conmigo. Deme la puerta, Grant. Buenos días. Hola, Lauren. Gracias, vamos. ¿Cómo estás? Hola. Buenos días, señorita Vega.
Buenos días, señora Jo.
También recuerdo que estábamos creando nuestros libros. Creo que eran sobre la playa. Usamos un grabador para unir todas las páginas. Yo estaba aquí. Yo estaba grabando mi libro y Aiden se estaba allí. Por accidente grabé a su uña. Todo el salón se fue silencioso cuando eso pasó. Y luego Aiden se empezó a llorar.
Mira, este es el trabajo número 2. Después de que contestes la pregunta del día, quiero que hagas el número. ¿Qué número es este? 13. Haces tu número 13. Vienes a buscar tu libro aquí.
Hola, me llamo Alison Wiesner. Tengo 18 años de edad y estoy en mi último año de bachillerato. Nació y creció en una ciudad desconocida del mundo, pero dentro de este lugar es donde nuestra historia empieza. Algo que empezó en 2008 con 25 estudiantes, que ha crecido a una comunidad con cientos de padres, estudiantes, maestros e internos. Bienvenidos al programa de Inmersión de Español.
Several years ago, shortly after Pam Holman became the superintendent of the Sioux Falls schools, she had this idea that it would be beneficial for the district to start specialized programs. As the smaller schools around us grew, we didn't want to see things happen in Sioux Falls like have happened in Omaha and other large towns where people start to gravitate to the suburbs because they feel like the schools are better. So we wanted to be sure that we had something innovative and top-notch. So she put together a committee and did some investigation into different programs that parents would want to support, implemented a survey, and then took the results of that survey to decide what kinds of specialized programming to start developing in the school district. And one of the top choices among parents was to have some kind of a language immersion program. There was another committee formed to decide what language would be the language in that immersion program. And that committee met several times. It was an interesting process to watch from the outside. I wasn't on the committee, was close with Dr. Adderhold, who was the chair of that committee. They explored many different languages, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, but eventually settled on Spanish as being the language that would be the most effective and efficient and sustainable for the Sioux Falls School District.
So I found out about the program through an article in the Argus Later. I heard the school board was considering approving the program and they approved it, and the day after that I signed Allie up for the program.
So we're gonna go way back. So in 2006 I was invited to be on a committee called the World Language Advisory Committee, and I had a kindergartner, Annika, our daughter, already in a school, Annie Sullivan, and the principal there knew that I loved languages because I went and taught after school some French, because I had been a teacher in a French immersion program and I love to mix languages and children. So I sat on this committee and they were talking about, with languages, how could we enhance our language programs? And they talked about Chinese being added. But anyway, they were talking about so many different things that I thought, well, I'm just gonna throw in there. Could we talk about Spanish immersion? Because children and languages are a perfect match. So it was about middle of 2006. In one of those meetings then, I brought up the idea of teaching immersion either full or partial, and then it kind of just started going from there.
El programa de inmersión lo encontramos porque una maestra que estaba en el programa es amiga de mi esposa. Aplicamos y nos contrataron a los dos, a mi esposa y a mí, como maestros. Cuando llegamos, la gente fue muy amable. Todos los padres estaban involucrados, querían ayudarnos a que nos fuera bien como maestros en el programa. Y los niños espectaculares, siempre interesados y dispuestos a hablar siempre en español y aprender.
There was a lot of excitement. Another interesting reaction that you may not be aware of is it has been an ongoing challenge to help people understand what the program is. Many people assumed that it was a program for Spanish speakers, and then they made the conclusion that, oh, this is so Spanish speakers don't have to learn English. And so there actually was some small degree of pushback about, well, why aren't you teaching these students English? So it's been that helping people understand, no, this is about adding a language. It's not about saying that people can stay embedded in one language. It's about saying we believe that speaking multiple languages is a good thing, and we want to have English speakers learn how to speak Spanish.
Siempre me ha gustado que hemos mantenido a los niños siempre hablando en español, siempre utilizando el lenguaje y aprendiendo la cultura. El programa tiene mucho apoyo del distrito escolar, de los padres, pues es exitoso. Si ves los resultados de los niños comparados con otras escuelas, el programa de Inmersión siempre muestra muy buenos resultados.
Well, I just thought, how could I not give this opportunity to her and Easton? By learning a second language, I learned a little bit of German in high school, but never retained it. And from her starting when she was age 5 through her senior year, she would be able to retain the language.
You can be bilingual. So we have a group of students now that have this incredible skill of being bilingual. And you didn't have to have a certain IQ, you didn't have to be from a certain social milieu because you didn't have to pay a lot, it was part of your public school education. So I love that we have bilingual now citizens in our state, in our world. You can send your child to kindergarten and they will learn whatever language you're speaking.
Entonces, ¿qué son unas razones por las que decidiste participar en el programa?
Para compartir mi cultura, primero, era una oportunidad para mí, para mi esposa, porque los dos nos ofrecieron una posición en el programa, así que era un buen negocio para los dos también.
Because I thought it would give her a world of opportunity that I never had. And she can be my travel guide as we tour through Spanish-speaking countries.
So, why did I sign up Grant? I wanted him to be bilingual. I myself speak French, and I love that I can speak with the whole other side of the world. But my husband, he was excited about the program for a very different reason. When we were trying to sell the program to our friends and neighbors and wherever we went, we kept talking about the program to get people to sign up for that first year. I say this story. I was all about learning the language, and my husband was all about what it cognitively does to the brain of a child. And to this day, my engineer husband, Dan, will say that that's incredible.
Primera memoria con el programa.
Mi primer día de kinder, cuando entré el salón, mi maestra estaba hablando español y no sabía qué estaba diciendo. Entonces, cuando llegué a casa el misma noche, mi mamá pregunté cómo fue mi día en la escuela y decí que no sabía qué está diciendo mi maestra.
Mi primera memoria es yendo al parque. Fuimos como un grupo de clase y recuerdo conociendo a los maestros y a los estudiantes. Fue muy divertido y fui asustado por el español, pero sabía que iba a ser divertido por mis amigos.
As they're looking at the long-term planning for the district, Rosa Parks was a new building that was coming online. And typically when you open a new school, there's a little more room than there might be in an existing school. That was part of what they looked at. We can open this new school, we can ensure that there's enough room to have a language immersion track there. And at the same time, what they did was looked at the other specialized programming that they were interested in doing, and the decision was made for Rosa Parks to be a global studies school. With that being at Rosa Parks and then having the room for the classrooms, that was the decision to put it at Rosa Parks.
Still is a little surprising to me today, and I should have seen this coming having been an immersion teacher, right? It's surprising to me that I don't get to hear more Spanish from my immersion child. But I understand why. School was Spanish and home wasn't. Another thing maybe that was surprising was initially I was very surprised that the community was so hesitant to embrace it.
I mean, I've definitely heard from back in like the 70s or something, that like people thought that it was like really bad for you to be bilingual. I don't know, that like it kind of like made your brain bad or something, even though it does the complete opposite.
Right. And do you know what I think that's part of? I think it's a fear. The Germans, when the Germans were over, and then when World War II broke out, they were shamed to speak German, so they wouldn't pass that German on to their children. This is in pockets of the nation. And so then people we were trying to fit in and everybody should speak English, which is true. We live in America and we need to speak English as well. But learning a second language just enhances your life and then the world. It's amazing that more Americans aren't learning a second language, no matter what it is, but that might come.
Hopefully.
I hope.
What surprised me most about the Spanish immersion program was how quickly the kids learned the language. Not so much that they could speak it, but they could understand it from Senora Job's. So when we were visiting the classroom during certain projects, like they made gingerbread houses around the holidays, all the kids just understood what to do with their gingerbread house, and us parents were just kind of lost on what Senora Jones was saying, but again, the kids understood. And that was only about 3-4 months into the program.
Los niños siempre estaban interesados en aprender. Siempre cualquier cosa que les presentaba estaban dispuestos a trabajar. Muy acostumbrados a tratar de entender qué es lo que está pasando. Y creo que eso es una parte de aprender un segundo idioma y estar inmerso en un segundo idioma que le ayuda a los niños. Siempre estaban tratando de resolver los problemas. No se daban por vencidos fácilmente y siempre persistían para lograrlo.
So when you saw us, like our class, interacting with our teachers and learning Spanish, what was going through your mind?
I was so proud. Over the top. And it continually amazes me to think, they're getting it. They understand. Language is just magical. But I'm going to tell you, behind all that magic is a lot of work. So that kindergarten teacher, because I was one, if you're going to do it well, every 3 minutes is planned. You know what your little audience doesn't know. So you know that you have to tell them these 5 key vocabulary words and intermingle it before your lesson, or intermingle it with your lesson. There is so much teaching strategy that goes behind immersion teaching, because we have to get meaning, we the teachers have to get meaning across to you. Though it looks magical, I'm just so thrilled, like, oh, these children are getting this. But there's also some very good teaching strategy that's happening so that you can understand content and the language at the same time.
Para la mayoría de los maestros e internos, viajar a Dakota del Sur para el programa era una nueva experiencia. Para algunos es su primera vez viajando a los Estados Unidos, especialmente a Sioux Falls. ¿Qué fue tu primera impresión sobre América y Dakota del Sur? ¿Cómo pensaste sobre la gente? ¿Había algún aspecto sobre estadounidenses que te sorprendió?
Bueno, yo había estado en los Estados Unidos mucho tiempo antes, en el año 2001. Vine a estudiar como un estudiante de intercambio por un semestre. Definitivamente me llamó mucho la atención la cultura, la gente. Más adelante vinimos con mi esposa. Ella vino a enseñar. En ese momento fue que hice mi cambio de carrera, me convertí en maestro, pero eso fue en Virginia. 5 años antes de venir a SefChol. En Virginia pudimos también compartir mi cultura, no en un programa de inmersión, pero de Foreign Language in Elementary School. Entonces eran solamente 30 minutos cada día, no era todo el día en inmersión. Luego llegamos a Dakota del Sur y pues se siente mucho la diferencia entre Virginia y Dakota del Sur. En Virginia vivíamos muy cerca a Washington, D.C. La gente es muy independiente, muy para sus propias cosas, pero aquí la gente es más amable, más abierta. Nos recibieron con los brazos abiertos y se sintió muy bien llegar a SefChol. Y sobrevivimos nuestro primer invierno, así que todo estuvo bien después de eso.
The immersion kids got a lot of attention. You were invited to school board meetings, but that wasn't your fault. It's interesting now that you say that, is because I'm going to say that parents probably had a part in that as well. And again, I wonder if it goes back to the parents that were regretting that they didn't sign up their child. If there was some anxiety because you guys, the immersion kids, did get a lot of press, which is pretty normal in any new program. It's over the top interesting. It's not like a new math and science program. I mean, this is like a language where most people don't speak another language. So they're just in awe about how this is all going to work.
I was not concerned about Allison being treated differently in the program. With her skills of being bilingual, I think it actually increased her confidence as a young child, and she ended up standing up for other kids that were being bullied on the playground and just being their friend. So again, I think the program put that confidence in her that she may not have otherwise gotten.
Concerns specifically about bullying, I don't recall that we did have those concerns. And as far as the students being treated differently, that was part of the thinking for having it at the Rosa Parks as part of the Global Studies program at Rosa Parks. The Global Studies program was to have a FLES, a foreign language component, where all of the students at Rosa Parks would get 15 minutes of Spanish every day. So that then having the Spanish language in prominent places throughout the school would just seem normal, and having kids there speaking Spanish would just seem normal to all the rest of the kids.
Yo creo que nuestra clase de español también tenía algunas cosas que no eran la misma, pero también creo que fuimos tratados de lo mismo.
Creo que no. Creo que hay un estándar ahora para los niños del programa de inmersión, que somos más inteligentes o al menos como más avanzados que los niños tradicionales, pero yo no sé si eso es completamente verdadero. Creo que el programa nos ha dado una oportunidad para ser avanzados y creo que eso es bueno, pero nunca he experienciado, menos de otros niños, un sentido que somos menos o menos.
I think the parents that were not involved in the program had a hard time of understanding why the school district wanted to approve it and put money into this program. But those of us that put our kids in the first class just had faith in the school district and knew that they did all the research. Again, I wanted to provide this opportunity to Allison. So many other schools and many other large school districts and like Minneapolis and large metropolitan areas provide these opportunities to kids, so why not Sioux Falls?
We as parents were very excited about being just in a school, so we did a lot to integrate into the PTAs of the Parent Teacher Association at that time. And so we were very conscious of not being that elite group, that they're doing, something really unique. Though we felt that way maybe inside, that we were really doing something really odd and exciting and yet scary. Many parents in the program don't speak a second language, and it's amazing because you all of a sudden as a parent lose control. Your child goes and the teacher's doing, you don't know what is going on because you don't know the language. So we tried very hard to be involved as traditional normal parents as well, to a point where in a few years down the road, a lot of the immersion parents were leading the PTA.
Yo recuerdo que en escuela elemental, los niños que hablan inglés y los niños que hablan español no eran amigos. Ahora estoy en escuela de bachillerato. Estoy como buenos amigos con algunas de las personas que eran muy, ¿cómo se dice? No sé, cruel.
Sí, muy cruel.
Okay. Mi memoria más concreta de los niños de inglés era que construimos una muralla de China de nieve en segundo grado y recuerdo que algunas de las niñas de inglés lo destruyeron y todos nosotros estábamos totalmente tristes, no sabíamos qué hacer y recuerdo que eso solo fue una de las experiencias. Ellos no creían que fueron lo mismo que nosotros y creo que en alguna manera fueron celosos de nosotros, no fueron buenos a nosotros por eso.
Good evening, buenas noches everyone. Thank you. It is so nice to see such a full house tonight. Welcome to the Rosa Parks Spanish Immersion First Annual Spring Fiesta.
Who came up with the idea of the Spring Fiesta?
That was parents. They really saw that as something that the kids could do that would give them another experience, a public experience. It could help the community know more, make the program a little more prominent throughout the community.
Well, the Spring Fiesta, I believe, started when you were in first grade. Yeah, the kids worked after the holidays and to get their songs memorized and their skits performed. And I would say the first few years of the Spring Fiesta was a pleasure to watch, and it was so much fun to see these kids on stage. But as the program grew and more kids had to be in the Spring Fiesta, it did kind of lose its personalization, I guess, of really seeing your kid on stage, because the kids were now put in these large groups just due to the time.
Again, I was one of the starters.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear about it. I produced it so you could hear about it. So we knew that we needed to raise money for our interns. Interns that, came into the classroom were such a wonderful language role model, because you had your teacher then and find somebody else that could interact. The PTA was raising money for the whole school. So now how are we going to delicately raise money for the small immersion program? So that would have been spring of 2010. Posse had started. We were very respectful of PTA, but then we had this other group of parents that would meet in my living room, in the Schramm's living room, probably at the Perry's house. Our parents that would meet together and talk about things that we could support each other, and then fundraising. So that's when we started to say, hey, let's have the children sing to us. I mean, it was such a thrill to hear them and see the Spanish. Celebrations in life are wonderful. It was fundraising, but it was also celebrating your learning, and then we as parents got to see that. I think it's very important.
A mí me gustaba la fiesta primavera porque era una oportunidad de como expresar nuestra creatividad. Era muy divertido para los estudiantes, para nuestra clase, porque era una oportunidad de descansar de escuela y practicar nuestra canción. Creo que era una buena idea porque aprendimos muchas canciones diferentes.
Yo recuerdo que fue muy divertido para mí porque mi mamá estaba encargada de hacer los disfraces, así que ayudaba con eso y sabía que iba a ser una fiesta en realidad, porque íbamos a bailar y poder estar con los amigos y también ser parte de la cultura española.
Pues primero ansiedad porque no sabía cómo era, qué esperar, pero una vez que empezó la fiesta de primavera requería muchísimo trabajo de los maestros, de los estudiantes, pero me pareció un gran evento que unía a todo el programa, toda la familia de Inmersión. Fue muy divertido, pero igual requería muchísimo trabajo.
Sí, me divertí mucho en la fiesta de primavera. Yo siempre estaba feliz con el final de eso porque trabajamos muy duro durante el año para preparar y para hacerlo muy divertido para nosotros y para la audiencia, pero también fue triste porque significaba que era el final del año y que los maestros y los interns iban a cambiar o irse. Siempre sentía muy logrado porque alcanzamos requerir el dinero suficiente para tener interns el año siguiente.
Right, you are going to laugh. Up until the very last Spring Fiesta, I have never seen it from the audience because I was always working backstage. I didn't see one, but I bought all the DVDs. I've just started to look at them. So what I saw from backstage was, a lot of excitement and people working hard, and what a thrill to see the production. I mean, this is a language immersion program. It's, if you're in a soccer program, you better have a soccer game, right? That's very exciting. And the parents worked really hard too, and the teachers, and the administration to make.
Yeah.
And costumes. As parents, sewed a lot of costumes.
Este es mi salón de cuarto grado. Yo tenía el señor Borges en este salón. Definitivamente recuerdo aprendiendo danza kuduro aquí. Recuerdo haciendo un proyecto donde teníamos crear un modelo de las células. Aquí yo creé un modelo de las células de planta.
But why is the Spring Fiesta an elementary school? Well, an elementary school only event. Why did the event not transfer to middle school and high school?
The challenge was the Spanish Fiesta really is a very time-intensive event for the teachers and administration to take that on in middle school when they already had a full, they were already completely busy before Spanish Immersion came in. It just was more than they wanted to take on. And actually it has not continued at Sonia either. As Sonia got to be so large with so many students, it became just logistically too cumbersome to try to do that kind of event.
Well, as the years went by, the program started to expand, and then what are your thoughts about that?
I think it's exciting bringing in the dual immersion program now to run along as a kind of a parallel track with the Spanish immersion program. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for us to get even more understanding between cultures, the more that we can have our own native Spanish speakers here in Sioux Falls working with English speakers and especially the Spanish immersion students. It becomes even stronger so that when they come together at Edison or at middle school, then I think we're really going to see some exciting things develop in terms of building some friendships across the cultures.
Creo que es una buena cosa tener la oportunidad de hablar más de un idioma es increíble y creo que si tenemos más personas en el programa es buena.
Me ayudaba como a sentirme más confiado por el programa. Al crecer tenía más respaldo, más interés. Hay gran demanda por el programa, o sea, hay niños en lista de espera por poder entrar. Eso da es una muy buena imagen que tiene el programa. Y el crecimiento pues es emocionante saber que iba a tener su propia escuela y pues seguir hacia adelante con la escuela media y con el bachillerato. Y ustedes que van a graduarse ya la primera generación, es increíble.
One of my colleagues back in Minneapolis, where I taught French immersion, kindergarten and first grade, she said, you build a big program and they will come. No, did I say that right? You build a strong program and people will come. And it started out really well. We had fabulous teachers right away. We had strong support from administration. Superintendent was all behind it. So it wasn't a surprise to me at all that it grew. This was all before like the 5th grade scores were shown. So what people wanted to know when they signed their child up for kindergarten was, will this hinder them with their academic performance? And the answer was, no, but you might need to wait a couple years to see it blossom. You might not see the results right away, but you might have to wait till 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and then they are on par or above their peers in traditional. That was what we knew from research, and that's what we were hoping to happen. And it did happen. Those first couple groups were never shown as really low scores. But if a child is, no one should worry because it might just take a little bit of time.
Me emocionó mucho porque el programa ha tenido un impacto muy gigante en mi vida y quería que otros pudieran tener esa experiencia también. Yo sé que mi hermana está en el programa 5 años después y es un programa más avanzado y aún más beneficioso para los niños. Me emociona que hay tantas personas en nuestra ciudad que van a poder hablar español y van a tener ese sentido del mundo.
The intention was always that it be a K-12 program. So from the very beginning, the intention was it was going to go all the way through high school. When it came time for middle school, if you go back and look through all of the board reports, there was some, at the time, talk about having it be at George McGovern because George McGovern was just about to come online. Again, we knew that there would be room. It seemed like a good spot to put the Spanish immersion program. However, because it was way up in the northwest corner of the district, there was concern from parents because they were really, some of them had purchased homes closer to Rosa Parks and in that area of the district, assuming that's where their kids would be. Then we started looking a little more closely at, was there a way to have it be more centrally located, and how could that work out? Edison Middle School had room. They did decide, rather than putting it up at Georgia McGovern, to leave it at Edison so that it would be more centrally located.
Yeah, I mean, I agreed that the program needed to continue into middle school, and I think the 3 subjects that they chose were appropriate. Continuing to have an intern as these kids transition to 6th grade, which in and of itself is a big transition of growth for someone that's 11, 12 years old, to move from these smaller elementary schools where they've had friendships for 6 years into a middle school.
I mean, it makes sense. You don't just stop learning a language in 5th grade. So we said this is a K-12 program. So we, as a parent group, would continually be in conversation with the district. It's K-12, right? Your class was about in 3rd or 4th grade. We started to ask questions about 6th grade. And the district was responsive in answering those questions, that yes, it would be continuing. Now you know the language, so now we can get more content. Although you're always building language and content at the same time. But the parents lobbied to have as many classes as possible and logical in middle school. So they have 3, which is a really good program.
I was not worried about having Spanish all day once they got to middle school. I think by then their brains have developed and wiredly differently by then to retain the language that they have learned. By having both of them, it did pile on a lot more homework, I noticed, especially in 6th grade, when it seemed some of the teachers between the English speaking classes and the Spanish classes didn't always converse on how much homework these students were given. So I do remember Allie being stressed out many nights just due to the piles of homework in 6th grade. I think that did lighten up a little bit in 7th grade.
Wasn't worried because you had 3 classes. The only thing that, and I continue to worry about this, is that we want the kids in those immersion classes to remain in Spanish. But I've done some research in other immersion programs in the cities, and I visited a couple of those, and I saw that the teacher was struggling for the middle school, because the middle schoolers, you have a different attitude, right? One person starts speaking English and it just wrecks the whole atmosphere. So I would tell Grant, I say, well, you make sure that you guys stay in Spanish.
I do remember as like a 6th grader going to my math class, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the first time I'm learning math in English. This is so weird. I learned social studies and science for the first time in English when I got to high school.
That's exciting for me to hear about that, because we're observers. You live it.
I mean, they do say that math is pretty universal, so.
But we don't realize that. I had an adult question me at my table right over here. Well, at the beginning we had lots of conversations about immersion, but anyway, he was all worked up about, well, they're not going to know how to do math. And my husband and I are sitting there looking at, wait a minute, I mean, math is math. You just label it something different.
Entonces aquí es nuestro cuarto de 5º grado. Aquí yo tenía la señora Betancourt. Nada, absolutamente nada se cambió. Yo recuerdo que durante el año estábamos organizando y limpiando nuestros casilleros. Enrique, él sacó 7 almuerzos de su casillero que no fueron comidos. Por supuesto, la comida adentro fuera malo, pero recuerdo como sacando todos los almuerzos fríos, y la clase se estaba como tan sorprendido, como, wow, Enrique, ¿por qué tienes tantos almuerzos?
If you look at other programs across the country, that's a very typical way of doing immersion programming. We want to be sure that students are fluent in both English and Spanish, and not just conversationally fluent, but academically fluent. So we choose carefully what subject they're going to be in, also with an eye to the fact that they're going to have to take the standardized tests. It's a reality that we live with. And so if you're learning it in Spanish and taking the test in English, that isn't necessarily a good situation. And since we knew that they would have a math test and a science test in English, and that's going to get increasingly more difficult as you move through the grades, we just felt that it was important to have students learning English as well as Spanish, or you really are shortchanging the one language in honor of the other language.
I most certainly think you've all branched out individually and continue to find your own personality and path in life. Once you entered high school, there's so many other opportunities to be involved in extracurricular activities, whether it's sports or drama. So yeah, I think each kid's personality and where they want to go in life has expanded beyond the possibility of just through the Immersion program.
Because of when we had gone around and visited other programs and seeing how they did it, we just saw that there were some real benefits of having it not become an isolated program. As you grow up, your world expands, and it was just really important to have our students experience that expansion.
Yo recuerdo que estaba muy asustado para entrar en escuela intermedia, pero sabía que iba a ser algo bueno. Íbamos a tener más amigos y más experiencias. Me asustó, pero ahora, mirando atrás, estoy muy feliz de la libertad que hay, que podría crecer como un estudiante. Y ir a la secundaria, yo fui muy asustado porque cambié de escuelas, pero lo bueno de eso es que todavía tenía el programa de inmersión y sabía que iba a tener esa base de amigos y de información que me ayudaría con el cambio.
Un poquito, la única cosa que era muy preocupada, mi cantidad de español que hablaré. En escuela primaria hablamos español.
¿Todo el tiempo?
Sí, todo el tiempo, pero cuando avancemos en escuela empecé a disminuir, pero creo que todavía estoy bien.
Having it go to Lincoln just felt like the natural progression. Part of it was learning what we had learned about parents wanting it to be central. For me, what was more of a surprise was that parents, we don't want our student to go to Lincoln. We've been a Washington high school family forever, and we'd rather have our child go to Washington. We'd rather have our child go to Roosevelt. Is there any way we can continue with the program and go to one of the other high schools? You know, then people really wanted their kids to be able to stay together. But once they got to high school, there were all these other dynamics at play that made them reluctant to have all of the kids at one high school. I mean, this is me personally speaking. This is not me as a former administrator of the school district. This is just, when I look at it, I would really like to see the district be able to offer it as a strand at all of the high schools. You know, we have a whole elementary coming in now, and then you have increased numbers with the dual immersion students who are coming in. That's a lot of students. So we should be able to easily support student number-wise having those classes at all of the high schools. And I think parents would appreciate that. I think it makes a lot of sense for kids to be able to be involved in other activities. Yeah, as students get older, that becomes so much more important to be able to pursue some of those other interests, and you don't want to see them having to give up too much to stay in the immersion program.
So my concern about Allison moving to high school was that I went to a high school with I had 30 classmates. So we knew each other pretty intimately. And for her to go to a high school that has 450, 500 students in her class, I hope she just didn't become a number. I think at least having the one immersion class daily helped her feel like she was an important student at Lincoln. Because she is an introvert, so she doesn't always branch out and meet new people all the time, which you need to do in a larger high school. But I do think all of the teachers at Lincoln have made her feel unique and special.
You know, by the time I got to high school, the concerns were traditional concerns. I mean, you know, you want your child to integrate into a bigger school and enjoy his or her high school experience. My only concern was that we had a solid teacher that could continue your high level of skills.
Headshot! Oh, I got that on tape! Yeah, you did? This is so fun! Guys!
At this point in time, the program is expanding at a large rate. Were you concerned for overpopulation of students in schools due to the program?
I'm not concerned about it because we have moved into the dual immersion model of it. So we're starting to bring in another angle, another lens, another need that we're addressing with the program. So therefore, I feel like is sustainable and it is something that the community needs. We knew that we needed additional classrooms at the elementary level because population was growing, and we also knew that we had a pretty significant demand for the Spanish immersion program. They were looking at the fact that we had Jefferson Elementary, that was an older elementary that really was going to need some work and really ideally should have some classrooms added on, and was that the most sense to do? And then they just thought, well, what if we tore Jefferson down and built a new elementary school? If we do it right, couldn't that just become a whole Spanish immersion elementary school, looking again at the demand? So I don't know if you were aware, for a while we had 2 second grade classrooms at IPC as well as the second grade classrooms at Robert Frost, and freeing up some room at Rosa Parks. So we had 3 buildings with Spanish immersion classes for a year or 2. It is very unique to have a total building devoted to a language immersion program. And when we've had people come in and visit who are familiar with language immersion programs, they're so envious and just say, wow, how did your community support this? And we explain the whole thing and they say, wow, it makes total sense. So yeah, it worked out well. It's the same process that we go through anytime a new school is built in the district. So there was a committee brought together and they brainstorm different ideas, and then they have a vote and they decide this is the name that we want it to be. And so there are guidelines about who you can and can't name a school after. And so within those guidelines, the name that they chose was Sonia Sotomayor, because she had just recently been named to the Supreme Court, and being the first Hispanic woman named to a position like that, it just seemed to be a good time to acknowledge that. Understanding that she's significant not just because she was Hispanic. So if somewhere on down the road it's no longer the Spanish Immersion Elementary School, you still want the name to be significant. It was expensive, but again, it was all part of what's called the Capital Improvement Projects with CIP. I think we were on CIP 3 at that time, Capital Improvement Planning Phase 3, which is all the long-range planning that the district does, looking at what's our student population, what are our facilities, what do we need to do to ensure that we have top-notch facilities. We were able to build Sonia Sotomayor without having to go to any kind of a bond issue or anything like that, because we had the funds at that time. Because of the way we were able to do capital improvement projects, we had been building up the funds to be building schools anyway, and so it just worked out in the overall.
Yo creo que es muy triste, como estoy todavía hablando español, pero no estoy en la clase porque fui a una escuela diferente.
Yo siempre recuerdo que siempre sentía como uno de mis hermanos o hermanas estaba mudando. Siempre fue triste porque sentía como la familia no estaba junto nada más. Pero yo creo que fuimos encima de ese obstáculo y ahora somos una familia muy unido. Y sé con mí mismo, yo salí de la escuela, pero todavía sé que hay esa base de familia, así que nunca termina. Si vas, solo es diferente.
Yo creo que sí, pues se pueden sobrellevar el obstáculo. En realidad, la mayoría de los niños que han salido es porque sus padres tienen que irse a otro lugar. Creo que en el programa de inmersión todos pueden ser exitosos, pero pues siempre me da tristeza cuando un estudiante se va. Se llevan un pedacito de mí.
It's called attrition, when the program becomes less, and people move away or leave. What I truly was amazed with as those kids moved away is that you guys all can still keep in contact. And I should have seen that coming with social media. I'm thrilled that, our son still talks about almost all the kids. A few we've lost, but as a parent, I keep up to date all the emails of our original group. And once in a while, I'll hear from someone like Ethan and the stories that she has told when they moved over to Iowa and how he has used his Spanish in school. I'm pleased that actually the whole group actually somehow kind of has tentacles keeping together. And I hope that the small nucleus groups still has that bond. I think you guys will always have a close bond, being that you were the guinea pigs, the pioneers, the newness of immersion.
That's the way it mimics life, that people move in and out of your life at certain times, and part of that is losing some classmates at times. But the remaining students, I think, when they walk across this graduation together, will be a very special moment, capturing 13 years of schooling. One moment will be pretty tough on all his parents, I think.
Y he tenido muchos amistades. Tuve 2 interns que vivían en mi casa, pero también todavía estoy en contacto con varios de los maestros y interns. Sé que la señorita Arias vive en Colombia ahora, pero todavía habla con mi mamá y yo por redes sociales. También el intern de Kinder, señora Vega, hablamos con ella y los otros estoy en contacto con ellos también.
No tenemos nadie más aquí, mi familia toda está en Colombia. Siempre se forman relaciones más profundas con los maestros, que son las personas con las que pasas más tiempo. Sí, tengo amigos en el programa y con los interns también, muy buenas relaciones. Mi primer intern regresó y ahora está trabajando en el programa y trabajé con él por 3 años. Así que siempre se forman buenas amistades.
No hay una cosa específica que recuerdo, pero sé que ha abrido mis ojos al mundo. Ellos me han dado una experiencia de todo el mundo y ahora no solo sé de Dakota del Sur, sé de todos diferentes de países y culturas y ideas.
No sé, la única cosa que recuerdo aprendiendo son las diferentes culturas y no sé si hay un dato específico, pero yo recuerdo las diferentes culturas en los diferentes países hispanohablantes y como los diferentes idiomas, o no idiomas, pero como hablen.
Su estilo de hablar.
Sí.
How did you visualize us using our Spanish? Has that vision changed now that we're older?
I think initially I was thinking, well, look, if these kids choose a career like in the health field, bilingual, they can serve the whole Hispanic population. So that was maybe my initial thought. And now, even if these kids, because now I see you as, 18-year-olds, heading into adulthood, even if you never really used your language in your career, it is an incredible opportunity that you will use it in travel, in having friends across the world, possibly email or read some interesting cultural books in Spanish. You will understand community members who are learning English as ELL, English as a language learner. So to me, I feel like I don't even care if you don't use it in your career. I'm thrilled you're bilingual for wherever that takes you.
I think when you were younger, I visualized you because you always wanted to be like a host on a travel show, speaking Spanish and English on a travel show. And now that some of your interests have evolved, I still think Spanish will provide you opportunities to help others that you probably would not have been able to help. Doing theater in Spanish, counseling people in Spanish that don't understand English or have the opportunity to work with a Spanish-speaking counselor. Because of that additional skill, your ability to serve and help others is only going to expand. Again, going back to just traveling with her, I think is in the future is going to be outstanding because we can go to any Spanish-speaking country and feel comfortable.
Ahora veo que son capaces de usarlo en la vida real, afuera de la escuela. Cuando estaban conmigo en 4º grado, pues era su idioma de aprender, no era su idioma de jugar, el idioma de jugar era el inglés y el idioma de la familia era el inglés, pero sé que ahora son capaces de utilizarlo más allá de la escuela. He escuchado estudiantes que han viajado y lo han utilizado en otros países. He escuchado estudiantes que lo usan para ayudar a personas que no hablan el inglés. Siempre me siento orgulloso cada vez que escucho una de esas historias de que han podido utilizar el idioma.
Yo recuerdo cuando fui muy pequeña que el español era para la escuela, eso es todo. Pero con el tiempo he decidido que quiero que el español sea una parte muy importante de mi vida. Lo he usado en diferentes vacaciones y viajes. El año pasado fui a Honduras y pude ser traductor en un proyecto de misión. En ese momento decidí, yo quiero usar mi español para ayudar a las personas y creo que eso puede ser el impacto de este programa, es que el español es un recurso para conectar con otras personas y ser un puente entre dos mundos. Así que yo quiero que todos en el programa puedan usar su español para hacer más en su vida.
¿Crees que nosotros hemos crecido como individuos desde nuestro tiempo continuo como maestro y estudiante?
¿qué factores sobre nosotros ha cambiado significativamente?
Ustedes tienen una visión del mundo más amplia, son capaces de entender a otras personas de otras culturas, de otros idiomas. Está presente en todos los estudiantes que he visto.
Bueno, además, crecimos.
Además de que crecieron. Sí, definitivamente. Ya no los puedo mirar así, ya tengo que mirar hacia arriba siempre.
Encontré a mi clase de primer grado y me trae recuerdos de si estás aquí. Yo tengo recuerdos de preparando para fiesta primavera aquí, cantando Sammy el heladero. Como medio de la clase hice Sammy el heladero y el otro medio se hizo una baile tradicional. Recuerdo mirando afuera de esta ventana, se estaba nevando y yo sentía tranquilo, me sentía paz. Pero también era muy emocionado porque se estaba nevando. Por supuesto, como un niño, yo quería jugar en el nieve. Are you excited about our senior Spanish capstone project?
I am. I'm especially excited about this one. Yeah, I think it'll be great. I hope we get a chance to see them. Hopefully it's something that you're passionate about so that you'll enjoy it too.
I'm super excited about it. Just hearing about what a couple of the other students are doing. I can't wait to see their final projects, like Reagan doing Spanish ballet lessons for underprivileged kids, and even Allison's project on hopefully this video showcasing the program for the last 13 years will help parents understand the opportunity that these kids have been given just through their education, and hopefully they will reconsider signing their students up or their children up for the program when it comes time to register them for kindergarten.
Mi opinión sobre la clase de capstone es que es una gran oportunidad para nosotros porque es una oportunidad para que nosotros decidimos lo que queremos hacer. Y creo que todas las personas en nuestra clase tienen opiniones muy concretas y que quieren expresar algo al mundo, así que es muy bueno. Lo único es que yo no sabía cómo quería hacer mi proyecto de capstone, así que estaba un poco asustado y nerviosa porque no sabía cómo iba a ser mi impacto.
And I think it's a wonderful way for these students to showcase not only their Spanish skills but also integrate it with their other talents that they have. Merging the two together and seeing the final product, I think it's going to be phenomenal, and I hope we get to see all of the students present their projects.
Just as in when we were going, the parent group, was asking the district about what are we doing in going into middle schools. When you guys started in 9th grade, we were already saying, what are we going to do in 10th, what are we going to do 11th, and then what does that leave for 12th? And when I say we, there's always these advisory committees about immersion, and then many of us parents have just been forever on these. You have to plan in advance, and we really wanted to give you students the advantage of getting college credit.
Yo estoy haciendo un proyecto de servicio. Yo estoy ayudando a un grupo llamado Lutheran Social Services. Ellos tienen clases donde enseñan a diferentes inmigrantes y personas que no hablan inglés, y además tienen clases que te enseñan cómo ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos, y yo voy a ayudarles con sus hablantes españoles. Voy a tener mi propia clase donde soy un mentor para ellos y puedo ser un recurso para que puedan aprender el inglés y tener conexión con el español.
Para mi proyecto de capstone estoy haciendo un ensayo primero sobre la medicina en Colombia. También compararé la medicina de Colombia a la medicina en América. Trataré de hacer una sombra de trabajo, pero como COVID está presente, no puedo estar en los hospitales. Todavía estoy hablando a los doctores, pero no cara a cara, estoy haciéndolo por Zoom, haciendo preguntas a los doctores sobre la medicina en América y luego compararlo a la medicina de Colombia. Haré una presentación, pondré las diferentes fotos y los diferentes datos y detalles de Colombia y la medicina de los Estados Unidos.
So the intention is that the per pupil spending for the Spanish immersion program be equitable to per pupil spending for any other program, so that there isn't any real significant financial impact to the school district. You know, there are some additional expenses, making sure that we get visas for teachers, for making sure that we have books in Spanish in the libraries, you know, some of those things that are an additional cost, but in the overall scheme of things, that's minimal when you look at the most expensive part of a program being the staffing. And because it's a whole school with students that have to be educated by a teacher anyway, the financial impact to the district is really pretty minimal. Thank goodness we have very supportive parents. So one of the things that we've been able to do with the support of Posse and the parents has been to have the intern program, which has been so helpful in terms of making sure that we have a good pipeline of teachers coming in, as well as just that additional support for the language, so that you have other native Spanish speakers to be models for the students. One way that it has impacted Sioux Falls is when families, whether they're moving here because their company says this is where you have to go, or they're trying to decide, do we want to live here, do we want to live here? Many of them are just blown away when they hear about the immersion program. And I think the other way that it has impacted Sioux Falls is, again, raising the awareness of the importance of being multilingual. For a town in South Dakota, we are very diverse, and we are fortunate to have so many different cultures represented in the city. And I think the Spanish immersion program, the language immersion, the emphasis on language immersion has helped people understand how important it is to embrace multiple cultures and to recognize that there's more to the world than one language, more than the world. There are many ways to do things. So.
Yo no sé una manera que el programa no ha impactado mi vida. El programa es una gran parte de quién soy y quién voy a ser en el futuro. Yo creo que me ha enseñado tanto sobre qué quiero hacer en mi futuro, qué tipo de persona soy. Esa es la cosa que ha impactado mi vida lo más.
One of the biggest thrills for me has been to have the interns in our home and in our lives, and to really have other countries come and live with us and then be in the school every day. I feel like we really have had a wonderful opportunity to see and live with other parts of the world and appreciate those differences and laugh about the differences and then have friends now.
¿Cómo puedo hablar un idioma completamente diferente? Primero me ayudará a conseguir un trabajo, obviamente, pero más como con una oportunidad grande, más profundo. Puedo solamente vivir en otro país hispanohablante y sobrevivir, y creo que eso es muy chévere.
I think the Immersion program has given Allie a drive and a confidence that she would have not otherwise had when it comes to her education and where she sees herself in the future. She's certainly an independent learner. Probably past second or third grade, there was no way I could read Spanish to her anymore. I think her maturity at 18 is far beyond many other 18-year-olds, and just culturally understanding and having the curiosity of wanting to learn about other cultures, not just Spanish cultures, but other cultures around the world and religions, and just how people live and different foods. Again, I think it all stems back to what she was exposed to back in elementary school.
From an administrator standpoint, as I have watched it, what I have seen is students who take an incredible pride in the program, and that's powerful. And I think they develop a confidence, especially with that first class. It's such a tight-knit group.
Me imaginaba hasta este año hacer otra cosa diferente que enseñarle a niños en mi idioma y continuar enseñando en Inmersión. Así que definitivamente ha impactado muchísimo lo que yo soy como maestro, lo que pienso y lo que quiero seguir haciendo.
Creo que el programa sí ha mejorado mucho. Yo tengo una hermana que está en el 7º grado y la diferencia entre mi experiencia y su experiencia es gigante, porque el programa ha madurado a un punto que no están teniendo tantas preguntas sobre qué vamos a hacer o cómo vamos a hacer esto y ahora saben qué enseñar a los niños. Yo recuerdo que en nuestra experiencia como la primera clase era mucho de siempre teníamos la primer maestro, siempre fue nuevo lo que estábamos aprendiendo, pero ahora creo que los otros niños tienen un sistema muy establecido.
Cada año los maestros se vuelven mejores, aprendemos más y eso nos hace mejores para el programa. Hemos conocido mejores prácticas, hemos aprendido, vamos mejorando y entre más mejoremos los maestros, más mejoran los niños, la administración va cambiando, va aprendiendo, cada vez es mejor.
Obviamente voy a ir a la universidad. Quiero estudiar la medicina, obviamente me gusta la medicina y quiero ser doctora.
Voy a ir a la universidad, no sé todavía a dónde, pero tengo dos opciones de posibles carreras que quiero hacer. Los dos incluyen el español. Puede ser que voy a relaciones internacionales y puedo usar mi español o a un programa de ser médico porque podría ir a países que hablan español.
Yo no sé si quedaré aquí en Dakota del Sur o si estaré en diferentes partes del mundo. Quiero hablar a clientes y pacientes que no pueden hablar inglés o que no entienden inglés.
No sé exactamente lo que quiero hacer con mi trabajo, pero sé que quiero usar mi español y sé que quiero ayudar a las personas. Estoy tratando de encontrar una carrera que incluye esas dos cosas, porque sé que hay tantas personas que necesitan nuestra ayuda como personas que hablan el español y el inglés.
Este año con la pandemia decidí cambiarme a la escuela virtual, así que enseño en línea 5º grado y pues desafortunadamente no hay inmersión en línea, así que estoy enseñando en inglés.
So the Spanish Immersion program is opportunity that me as a parent I couldn't let pass by. I mean, she's gonna go to school anyway, so why not provide this opportunity to her? It's opening so many doors for her. I already see it happening. I don't think she would be the person who she is today had she not been part of the program.
Well, I would describe the Spanish Immersion program as an incredible opportunity for kids in Sioux Falls. Wow, you know, for a chance to be bilingual, to read and write and speak in another language is just incredible. Those teachers, you know, many of them have come from a different country. What an opportunity for us and for the kids, you kids, to see and live with and be all your schooling with another person from a different country that brings their values and yet integrates into the American values. I mean, there's so much more happening in the immersion program than language development. You know, the cultural appreciation. I mean, we don't want to just tolerate cultural differences. We want to appreciate differences. And that's going to help all of us in our lives, even for what we're facing with difficulties in our world. My kindergarten students, in my first French immersion class, I had emailed them a couple years ago to ask, why should you sign up and what's so great about immersion? My students, who now were pretty much done with college, emailed me back, a few of them. And they had glowing things to say about their immersion experience, but they said, you know, it really wasn't until the middle of college where we realized we had something very different than the rest of the experience of the kids. 2 of them said this. We found this out because we kept being drawn to the international students on the college campus, and we loved to be with them, and there was this comfort level that nobody else seemed to have. And they said we didn't even know why until we started thinking, oh, well, we grew up in immersion settings where this was normal.
Si fuera solo una palabra sería espectacular, realmente increíble como los niños llegan y salen hablando otro idioma.
Yo quiero decir impactante porque el idioma cambió mi vida un poco, mucho. Ahora yo puedo hablar 2 idiomas, puedo vivir en cualquier país hispanohablante que quiero y puedo sobrevivir.
Es posibilidades, porque creo que es una oportunidad que te da tantas posibilidades para el futuro y solo es como una puerta que abre todo el mundo a ti.
Uvas, uvas, estrella, estrella, mano, mano.
So, what do you envision for the future of the program? Do you think that it will expand to other languages?
There have been conversations about opening another Spanish immersion because we do have so many parents on the waiting list that aren't able to get in. Even though we have this whole elementary school, we still have a huge waiting list. I think the next thing I would hope that the district would do would be to start doing some surveys and some reaching out to the community to find out what parents really do want. When the committee first formed, 2 of the languages that people were lobbying really hard for were Arabic and Chinese. I think that would be so awesome. I think it would be a wonderful opportunity. And when you look at other communities where they have multiple language programs, those are languages that are commonly seen, but recruiting the teachers and the instructional staff, plus there's the whole dynamic of getting the textbooks and the resources. I see the program is solid. It will be in place for a long time. I met a woman named Alicia Dawn Samples, who is very prominent at the national level in language programming. And the district that she came out of, every student learns another language. It's like the core tenet of that district is the importance of being multilingual.
Son incontables los momentos. Cada vez que un estudiante logra aprender algo nuevo, es un momento favorito y tengo muchísimas historias. De pronto la más divertida fue después de venir de Concordia, el viaje que hacemos cada año. Llegamos a Subway a ordenar nuestro almuerzo. Una niña voltea y me mira y me dice: señor Borges, no sé cómo decir cebolla en inglés. Se había olvidado del inglés solamente por estar hablando en español todo ese tiempo. Así que fue muy divertido pensar en eso.
Oh, there's so many. But I do have one that I love. Towards the end of October, maybe November, so 2 months into the program, we didn't hear any Spanish, of course, coming home. But in the middle of the night, one night, he's half asleep. He comes in and he goes, Mama, mucho frío, mucho frío, mucho frío. And he's sleeping. And I'm thinking, he's speaking Spanish. It's working. So he was cold that night, I'm cold.
I think it goes back to kindergarten in the spring when the kids put on Little Red Riding Hood in the library, and they did it all in Spanish. And then I will say the second one was when the kids graduated from Rosa Parks, and we had a little ceremony in the lunchroom for them. Every kid got like a banner based on their personality. 2 memories that give me goosebumps when I think about them.
Yo no sé si hay un momento exacto que recuerdo. Yo solo tengo este sentido de todo el programa de como felicidad y familia. Y siempre recuerdo que estamos riendo y divirtiendo al mismo tiempo que estamos aprendiendo y teniendo estas experiencias muy excelentes. Así que no puedo darte un momento exacto. Es solo una experiencia tan grande que no hay un momento exacto.
En 4º grado estábamos practicando para la fiesta primavera con el señor Borges. Jaden Petrol estaba tratando de memorizar el rap de nuestro de nuestra canción que cantábamos. Y cuando presentamos nuestra canción, él hizo el rap completamente en la audiencia.
Sí, pero la música estaba demasiadamente alta que todo pensaba que estaba haciéndolo solo por su boca. Sí.
Is really exciting to see the program now, to see your class now ready to graduate, to think back of remembering all of those conversations, the struggles, the challenges, the missteps, but mostly it's just so gratifying to see what a remarkable class you guys really are, and to see the possibilities now. It's just really exciting to me to see everything that you guys are doing. Not Spanish immersion wise. I mean, it's just the personalities come through, and the interests that you have, and the talents and the skills that you've developed. It's so gratifying, because that's what you go into education for, is to see students develop like that, and to see a program that's really building up that potential is just so exciting.
So my final thought about the program is I can't wait to see where these students are going to go in the next 5 to 10 years, because I do think each one of them has the opportunity to change the world, or at least a piece of the world in that area of their interest and passion. Through having bilingualism with Spanish, it's just going to open the doors to so many opportunities.
Creo que el programa de inmersión va a seguir allí, va a seguir creciendo, siendo fuerte. Es un gran ejemplo. Ya han abierto 2 escuelas más de inmersión dual. Ojalá que en el futuro de pronto el distrito ofrezca no solo español, sino otros idiomas para inmersión.
Yo solo quiero recomendar a todas las personas que tratan de poner sus hijos en el programa de inmersión o en una situación donde pueden ver el mundo entero, porque en Dakota del Sur siempre sienta como somos lo único en el mundo, pero hay tanto para aprender y descubrir, y con este programa es una puerta. Pero si puedes poner tus hijos o ti mismo en un lugar para explorar todo lo que hay en el mundo, te cambia a una persona mejor y te enseña tanto.
I'm excited to see where this program goes. I want in 10 years for your class to come back and have some kind of celebration. We're still going to need fundraisers, right? And I mean, if the program's still going and has interns, there's always going to be a need for fundraisers. So let's celebrate the learning, and I'm really excited to see where you guys go.
Estoy muy agradable que yo puedo hablar español, y para las amistades que conseguí durante los diferentes años, siempre voy a tener mis amigos que fui a escuela con, y todos los diferentes maestros siempre voy a recordar. Creo que es una buena programa y debe continuar.
En el 26 de mayo, mis amigos y yo nos vamos a graduar. Graduarse del bachillerato, graduarse de la juventud y graduarse del programa. Este proyecto es mi despedimiento al programa. He estado a los lados de mis amigos para 13 años y hemos estado juntos para lo bueno y lo malo. Pero es tiempo para decir adiós y empezar una nueva aventura. Los recuerdos que tengo nunca van a desaparecer. Desde mi primer día de kinder, mis amigos y yo creamos una familia. Una familia que va a quedar juntos sin importancia de dónde nuestros caminos nos toman. Y con esto, nuestra historia se concluye. En Colorín Colorado, este cuento se ha acabado.